Hey, was it good for you too? It is the Week 8 recap here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. Let's flip and go.
You got a team, here's a word of the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football. I'm living in a fantasy. Football. Got everybody mad at me. Football. Cause every game I had to win. Football. I gotta be a champion. Football. I'm living in a fantasy.
That's right. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, 20 years of the Audible. And what a fun week of football we have to recap for you. And surprises. I don't know how many survivor pools are out there because when you look at, hey, I got the Falcons this week. Welp, that didn't work out. It was the Miami Dolphins 34, the Atlanta Falcons 10. And Tua went for 4 touchdowns, 205 yards in this one. Jalen Waddle, 5 for 99 and a touch. Malik Washington, 4 for 36 and a touch. Devon Achane as a receiver, 5 for 24 and a touch. And then 18 for 67 as a runner. Ollie Gordon got a catch for 20 yards and a touchdown there as well. Also, Ollie Gordon had 10 carries for 46 yards. We'll get to the Atlanta side and all the problems they're in. But man alive, Miami messing up a lot of office pools this week.
Yeah, Cease, I'm in the Pool Genius Survivor Bowl, $10,000, $5,000 to charity. And as of right now, fewer than 10% of the entries are alive. And today accelerated that. It was a day of variance. This is not a day. If you're trying to convince somebody that fantasy football is fun, this is not a day to use to illustrate that. This was a day of variance. This was a day that highlighted the unpredictable nature of the NFL on a game-to-game basis. And no game illustrates that better than this game. You have bipolar teams. I'm allowed to say that. I've got bipolar in my family, maybe myself. I don't know. Fantasy football might be making that worse, Cease, because when we look at this matchup, this was a Miami team the last 2 weeks that looked like they were giving up. They'd come full circle back to week 1 when they were giving up Tua Tagovailoa with 6 interceptions. Atlanta's defense had made Josh Allen look frustrated. San Francisco very smartly went ball control with Christian McCaffrey against them. So you thought this is a defense. We saw them dismantle J.J. McCarthy. Tua's coming in wobbly. They're gonna get him. No, Miami is like the slasher. He's not dead. Don't look over your shoulder. Miami's not dead. Here he comes. He's got a knife. Atlanta, by the way, this happened to them against Carolina in week 3. Carolina had looked like one of the worst teams in the league through 2 weeks, and they lost to Carolina 30-0. So this has actually already happened once this year. Tua Tagovailoa with 4 touchdowns, long touchdown after Atlanta had kind of given up to Jalen Waddle, although Waddle also drew a pass interference early. Malik Washington made a terrific catch on his short touchdown. Both running backs get a touchdown. Ollie Gordon gets more run. Of course, Mike McDaniel's going to go back to the running game to right this ship. Waddle's been a big factor every game they haven't played in the wind, so that's working out. 35 runs to 25 passes. That worked out. They turn around and play on Thursday against Baltimore. And as far as Atlanta sees, nothing worked out.
Yeah, nothing worked out with Kirk Cousins in, Michael Penix out in this one. And Cousin goes 21 to 31, 173 yards, no touchdowns, no INTs. Kyle Pitts goes 9 for 59. Okay. Kadero Hodge for 31. Nobody started him. You did start Bijan Robinson, and he had 9 for 25. Hey, and then you look over everything the Dolphins have allowed on the ground, and then Bijan's got 9 for 25. Oy boy. All right. It was Tyler Algier with a rushing touchdown. So if you had him in as a what the heck flex, just a real off and bad day for Atlanta football.
Kirk Cousins is rusty. Geez, that's an understatement. This team had 4 3-and-outs in their first 5 drives. And like you said, Cease, with the running game, and this team was leaning into their running game. How's this possible? At least Michael Penix doesn't have to look over his shoulder. I guess there's your silver lining of this cloud. No quarterback controversy here. This was the week to face Bijan Robinson. Why is fantasy football senseless? Any other week you're looking at 20, 25 points against you. This week, hey, he 5 points and he fumbled. Or 7 points, whatever it was. senseless, right? Schedule luck. The NFL has schedule luck too. As it is in the NFL, so it is in fantasy football. Sometimes you lose and it just, why? Or you see your opponent benefit. Why couldn't I have faced that team without that player? That's what happens in the NFL too. So Algier even got the garbage time touchdown. Darnell Mooney, number 1 receiver. I thought this was going to be nice against Miami and their cornerbacks. Well, Kyle Pitts got a lot of catches. That was about it. Drake London, of course, a late scratch here with a hip injury. Speaking of Halloween and ghosts, Atlanta is going to New England 28-3.
Woo, scary. I got something to say for Woody Johnson. Probably not good. The Justin Fields stuff, man. We can talk Jets and Bengals and the Jets win. Let me get that stuff out of the way. I really just want to talk about Justin Fields.
Sure.
39-38 the final score. They do it with lots of Breece Hall and Tyler Johnson as their receiver with all their injuries. Johnson goes 3 for 64 and a touchdown. Mason Taylor goes Auntie Chill and goes 5 for 34 and another touchdown. Because of their injuries, you're like, they're down to Arian Smith and Tyler Johnson at receiver. But thank God for Breece Hall. 133 on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Fields gets 244 and 1 passing touchdown. And I believe you and I have done a good job over the years highlighting the human side.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw Justin Fields get emotional after this game, and he was talking about during the week, like hiding in his room and crying and like being curled up and just like, you don't have a heart. By the way, I'm going to trip you out with talk about neurites off the air sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have 40,000 cells in our heart.
Yes.
They have neurites, not neurons, neurites.
Right.
You could say that you can think with your heart.
Your heart sleeps too. At least there's some evidence based on the electrical activity that your heart can sleep too. But my heart woke up for sure, Cease.
With Fields.
With Fields. And I also want to say before you go back through the Jets box score, this was the game of the day. This was like the only competitive game of the day.
Right.
But let's say R.I.P. Nick Mangold.
Yeah, I can't even believe it.
Too young, kidney, 41. There's not many other words. Just that, hey, Mangold was part of the last time that I think the Jets fans could really be proud of that team. He was part of a young core that I told Chase Stewart, surely they'll win a Super Bowl with all these guys in their early 20s. Darrelle Revis, Mark Sanchez. I know that he's got some trouble with the law rate. I hope that he at least recovers it. It all happens so fast, Cease. And that's why today, let's salute Justin Fields.
Right. Let's salute Justin Fields. And that's the comments afterwards. Because the box score is the box score, baby.
Yeah.
But like, he's a human, everybody. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Woody Johnson, you're a billionaire. All right. You got like 0 problems, whatever. And you probably have never faced the adversity that Justin Fields has pretty much his entire career. Not only dealing with his health concerns, but also just dealing with people saying, well, he can't throw. He's not good. Like, to have the mental strength just to play football, but then to have the attack of the public of like, oh, they're going to go to Tyrod Taylor because Justin Fields sucks. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but for the love of God, remember that he's a human, and seeing him get emotional, glad the Jets won this one.
Yeah. And from a fantasy perspective, what's wild about this is he actually wasn't, you see 39 points. He actually was just okay for fantasy. He didn't break any long runs. He was poised as a passer, especially when they needed him to be, when they were down 14 points late. And it seemed like Cincinnati was ready to celebrate. I don't know. Is Fields back? I don't know. I thought he was back after week 1. It was the Steelers defense being atrocious, and Cincinnati's defense has been atrocious most weeks. Like you said, though, Cease, what's especially concerning here for Cincinnati's defense is you're looking at a team with Tyler Johnson as the number 1 receiver. Isaiah Williams, hard-nosed slot receiver. I think he hung on with the Lions for a little bit. He made some plays in this one. At first, actually, he had the biggest play as a runner for this offense. And the only touchdown of the game for Fields actually was a 4th down pass. So what happened after that? The running game gets going. And we saw this in week 1. You would think Fields would open up lanes for Breece Hall. Boy, did Breece Hall look magnificent in this game. So talented. He had a tightrope touchdown. He had another touchdown. Accounted for a 3rd touchdown. We'll get to that. Isaiah Davis looked good too. Isaiah Davis looked good as a receiver. Isaiah Davis looked good as a runner. This is that 1-2 punch with Braylon Allen before he went out for the year. We were picturing after that first game against the Steelers. Okay, you have Justin Fields as a runner. You have Fields making a pass when you need it and hopefully not making big mistakes. And then running the ball. And then and I want to say this for Aaron Glenn. We've criticized him a lot. Down 14 points. Chase Stewart, mentioned him twice now. Moral Tremblay, the brilliant Moral Tremblay. They straightened me out a while back, years ago, about when you're down 14 points in the fourth quarter, you go for 2 after the first touchdown. And you go for 2 after the first touchdown because you'll know if you need another 2-pointer to tie. If you make it, then you just made the 2-pointer to win. And if you don't, then you still have a chance to make up for your mistake. If you wait to go for 2 on the second touchdown and you don't make the 2, it is too late. So that's important, Aaron Glenn. And then Tanner Engstrand. And I think that Breece Hall said something like Tanner must have some big, he coming from the Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell school, right? Big cojones, sorry, Joe, to call this play. And what it was a halfback option pass. And Breece Hall actually showed pocket presence, or he wasn't in the pocket. He had it wasn't even really a pump fake. It was like, it's time to throw. Oh man, there's nothing there. And he committed enough with his body that the whole defense reacted to it. And at the last second, as he was about to get out of bounds, like he was headed towards the sideline, he threw one up for Mason Taylor, knowing that the defender was not facing him. How many quarterbacks could use this knowledge? Like, how's a running back know when you can see the back of the defender, throw the ball, no matter how good the coverage is, just throw it. Mason Taylor catches it. National Tight End Day. And what a game. They have a win. Maybe a win that'll cost them number 1 pick. I don't know. But hey, this is a good feeling going into your bye.
You down with the made-up holidays?
Well, I mean, if I have sentiment for the thing that the made-up holidays are, but tight ends, no. I mean, make it like national guys who like spray down the bleachers with a hose and have to have the puke and pee and everything run down on their feet. Let's have a national day for them.
I just want National Maui Wowie Day. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Flacco. Did he say Jamar Chase thought he sucked? Right? I think I saw that clip where Flacco's like, yeah, a little nervous playing with Jamar Chase because he thinks I suck. Jamar Chase 12 for 91 in this one. 19 targets. Everyone else got 2 and 3 targets. Jamar Chase got 19. Okay. T. Higgins, a catch, 44 yards for a touchdown. Chase Brown did something. He got a receiving touchdown, 32 yards, also 73 yards, and a rushing touchdown, more than something. Flacco with the rushing touchdown. Samaje Perine, where's our guy Jason up there in Greeley? Pot stoned degenerate. He knows Maui Wowie. 9 for 94 and a touchdown for 1. Samaje Perine also had a catch for 6 yards. So Cincinnati put up a fight. A lot of people thought they'd get this one easy, but they didn't.
They didn't, although it was still passing a test, right? Because we saw Joe Flacco scratch it out against Green Bay and lose. We saw him take advantage of a Steelers defense that looked just absolutely unprepared and unfocused. Now, the Jets defense has looked pretty good the last 2 weeks. How will the Bengals look against them? It was easy. It all came easy again. Chase Brown ran the ball well early. Joe Flacco actually got a sneak touchdown. He even had a scramble for like 12 yards on the 3rd down. He hit T. Higgins on one of those 2 or 3 targets. Like you said, I mean, they scored 38 points against the Jets defense. Again, for 2 weeks, at least they were decent. So I can't say throwing the ball to Jamar Chase 19 times was terrible. Although for fantasy, we're going to have to take that into account. Chase Brown gets a 2-minute drill touchdown. Samaje Perine, he's back. Samaje Perine has turned back the clock 5 years. He and Joe Flacco found some sort of time machine. He scores from 32. Now this is a 2-back attack because you would think with Joe Flacco throwing the ball well outside the numbers downfield, that's going to open up things for the running game. Both running backs get going here. That's just generally getting pushed around, which we had not seen the last 2 weeks. Jets go into their bye. They're going to figure out what happened there because this is a team that's going to play with pride on defense, but not in this game. And was 38-24, looked like the game was decided. And I think it was just one of those situations where you can't ever feel like that in the NFL. You can't go into a boxing ring with your gloves down. And that's what you're doing when you think the game is over and, you're not up by 28 in the fourth quarter. Ask the Atlanta Falcons. Ooh, it's the New Orleans Amecies.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. 732 Reppin does say is now the best time to sell Chase Brown. You told him no in the chat. What if it's sell high?
Well,
What if it's some crazy offer, right? I
Well,
mean, someone's
yeah.
gonna put it out there for Chase Brown. I do
possible.
not have confidence that Chase Brown will continue half of this going
Right.
forward.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, and I just don't think maybe if he puts it up next week against the Bears, who have been known to be soft against the run. But I think that Flacco has clearly, this was the last test to see whether it was just how bad the Steelers were last week, because we thought the Jets offense might be good. Jets offense was good when they were facing the Bengals. And that's the whole, going back to how fantasy football is senseless, because it's such a matchup driven league, because it's such a week to week driven league, because there's emotion, because there's psychology, because there's even a spiritual element to it. If we're going to talk about like where Justin Fields was in his life going into this game, and a team that is their offense just looks atrocious, and it's so hard for them to put one good play after other and just stack first downs. If they're playing a bad defense, then you get this feedback loop effect where everything starts to work. And when one thing works, it opens up for something else to work. And then everyone gets confident, and then everyone is sharp. And boy, if you're a football player and the plays work the way they're drawn up and the way they worked in practice, but doesn't that get you pep in your step back to the huddle for the next play? Next week, the next time we see the Jets offense, they may turn back into a pumpkin. It is Halloween. And for Cincinnati, again, a test against the Bears, who turned Tyler Huntley into a franchise savior today.
Yeah. Cooper Rush, what? We'll get there. Let's talk Browns and Patriots here in this one. It is the Week 8 recap. The Browns get 13, the Patriots get 32. Myles Garrett gets 1,000,000 sacks, but they get beat by a lot because their offense is not great, Bob. 156 for Dylan Gabriel, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs. Harold Fannin, 6 for 62 and a touchdown. David Njoku, 4 for 37 and a touchdown. Maybe he's coming up on his final games with the Browns. Jerry Jeudy's doing nothing. You've already moved on. Quinshon Judkins, 9 for 19. So the player that you had some confidence in, like he's going to do a little something. The tight ends will do a little something because it is Dylan Gabriel in there. They did certifiably nothing today.
You feel for Myles Garrett, really. I mean, this is about when Cleveland had the ball. But Dylan Gabriel, he ain't it. But Shedeur Sanders missed this game with a back injury. Kevin Stefanski already said Gabriel's going to start on the other side of their bye next week. Malachi Corley had a nice play. Former Jet. Harold Fannin scores early. This game was 9-7 at the half. More on that. But then Gabriel throws a couple of bad interceptions. Game gets out of hand. Quinshon Judkins leaves with a shoulder injury. And there was nothing to decide at that point in the game. Fantasy football senseless. Dylan Sampson's the backup. They're going to do a buy. We'll mention Dylan Sampson on the waiver wire show, but if you're going after the Browns backup running back at this point, yeah, man. So Myles Garrett had one of the best defensive games you will watch an individual player play in your lifetime, and the Browns got blown out.
Yep. Not fun. New England having fun. And they're having fun. Tell me you didn't watch Drake May in college when you say, I think they got something in this Drake May guy. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, they got something in Drake May. 3 touchdowns today, 282 yards, 1 INT there as well. Mac Hollins going 7 for 89, but he didn't get 1 of the 3. Kayshon Boutte did 3 for 75 and a touchdown. Then Stephon Diggs, 3 for 14 and a touchdown. Hunter Henry back in the good graces. He was probably on your bench, but 6 teams on bye. Maybe he wasn't. 1 for 7 and a touchdown. Demario Douglas, 1 for 44. Travion Henderson, 10 carries, 75 yards. Awesome. Ramondre Stevenson, 14 for 34 in this one. And then Stevens had a catch for 15 yards. But either way, with Drake May out there, the team surging, and they're looking at going places. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Ahead of schedule. Drake May. It's like, what's the punctuation mark there? Maybe at the beginning of the season, it was a question mark. Drake May. Now it's a exclamation point. Drake May. Drake will. Drake did. Yeah. And we actually even saw Travion Henderson doing some things early. He fumbled late, though. I know Ramondre Stevenson didn't do much for fantasy, but he's just going to be a boom-bust weekly play. This week it was Drake May getting the touchdowns, and in the first half getting sacked by Myles Garrett. Here's how important Myles Garrett is to this team. 3 times in the first half, the Browns held the Patriots to a field goal. All 3 drives were stopped by a Myles Garrett sack. That's a 12-point player, potentially, okay, just in the first half. In the second half, Dylan Gabriel interception, Robert Spillane almost returns it for a touchdown. Myles Garrett gets a sack on 1st and goal. Myles Garrett says, no, and they still score a touchdown. That's just, Myles Garrett can only be a one-man team for so long. And you even saw one from Drake May. If there's a flaw, his software needs to be updated. He said, and it was a bad interception. Carson Schlesinger, who left this game with a high ankle sprain, one of the young Browns making contributions. He said he forgot he could jump. He forgot that if he threw the ball right over Carson Schlesinger, that he might jump to intercept it. So, update that software. Players can jump. They're allowed to jump, not just in basketball. Henry touchdown, like you said. Butte got a touchdown. That's 3 straight weeks with a long touchdown for him. You saw Diggs get a touchdown. This is a floor game for Diggs. Gets his first touchdown as a Patriot. And like you said, Mac Hollins 7 for 89. That's how good Drake May is this year. Like, hey, Mac Hollins can have a good fantasy game without a touchdown because whoever the open guy is his guy. And again, this was a test, right? How good is this Cleveland's defense? Pretty good first half. You're like, yeah, now you're facing a real man's defense. You only got field goals. Now, by the end of the game, it was easy for this New England team. This is a good team facing, again, Atlanta next week, 23.
You're never going to let that go, are you?
Never. It's actually, you have to sign an oath when you move here. Every possible opportunity, you say it.
You bring it up. You say it and you bring it up. Oh boy. Oh boy. Giants, man. Scatterboo, man. Eagles 38, Giants 20. And Cam Scatterboo getting carted off with an ankle injury. You saw the headbutt from Jackson Dart and just the pain, and Giants fans online. You saw that. Dart had a passing touchdown. Dart had a rushing touchdown. Dart had 193 passing. He had 17 yards rushing. The passing touchdown goes to Scatterboo. There you go. Before he was bounced from this game, he also had 3 carries for 12 yards. In addition to that catch for 18 yards and a touchdown. Wan'Dale Robinson, 3 for 48. And then no one else is really worth mentioning. Even Theo Johnson, National Tight End Day, 3 for 20. Okay. All right. Tyrone Tracy taking over. We'll talk more about him on the waiver wire show to be sure. And the Giants. You really going to be buyers at the trade deadline?
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's tough. And this was an interesting game because, again, 2 weeks ago, the Giants on a Thursday night game really Dart and Scatterboo made their presence announced, known with that 34-17 win over the Eagles. That's the team the yardstick team in the NFC East. So they turn around and play them 2 weeks later. And this actually was probably going to be a really good game until Scatterboo left the game with, as many people watching the game put it, like his foot wasn't pointing the right direction. His foot wasn't pointing the right direction at the end of the play. Dislocated ankle surgery today. And you just hope it isn't like a Chris Godwin situation. You just hope this isn't one of those things that we say, kind of like Nick Chubb, We didn't have to say it with Todd Gurley. We did with Lattimore. I just hope, because so much joy, you just saw it deflate this team. So it was like this 2-game set was like the tragedy and the comedy, the faces, right? I mean, just the peak joy of that win, and this team having to absorb this gut punch. And on top of that, Darius Slayton had a really excellent 4th down, long touchdown. And he put his hand out during the route and gave his opponent a little shove on the hip, but it was 10 yards before the ball was competed for in the air, and they were hand fighting. And it's Darius Slayton. It's not DK Metcalf. Anyway, so Dart was trying to get his team back in the game. Like you said, garbage time touchdown on the ground. I think, without Scatterboo, obviously, you're lowering the expectations for this whole offense. Daniel Bellinger got banged up also. But at the same time, you're not going to see this team roll over. You're especially not going to see them roll over next week against the San Francisco defense. Also got some problemas with injuries and other things. But for the Phillies, for the Philadelphia Eagles, we've got baseball in the mind. Everything is feeling perfectly sweet and tranquil going into their bye.
Very nice. Jalen Hurts, 4 touchdowns today. 15 of 20, 179 yards, and 2 of them going to Dallas Goedert, 3 for 28 and 2. Saquon Barkley with a receiving touchdown and 4 for 24. As a receiver, 14 for 150 and a rushing touchdown. Thank you, Saquon. Tank Bigsby had 9 for 104 in this one. Devonta Smith, 6 for 84 in this contest. Jahan Dotson also had 1 catch, 40 yards, 1 touchdown. The Eagles run it 33 times, only passing it 20 times. Sounds like the right recipe.
Yeah, they answered the call. How are you going to respond going up against a team that really took your manhood 2 weeks ago and a team that you're supposed to take their manhood? They responded without A.J. Brown. And right away, you get a 65-yard run by Saquon Barkley for a touchdown. So we've been looking for that all year. Right away, we get that. Barkley ends up at 174 total yards, 150 rushing yards, another touchdown as a receiver. Did leave the game with a groin injury. We'll see. Bye week. But you've got to pick up Tank Bigsby. Unless it's a short bench league, carrying a backup running back through the bye. He had 100 yards, and some of those runs came before Barkley got hurt. So it wasn't just that the Giants had waved the white flag. You see a good fit here. Goddard, another touchdown, another touchdown. Devonta Smith, 6 for 84 is disappointing. And that's where we're at with you. We're trusting Jalen Hurts only threw the ball 20 times. 6 for 84 should be that's a good result. But also because you even saw Jahan Dotson showing the my ball mentality on his long touchdown. So yeah, it seems like this team is going to be okay. Now, if Scadaboo had got hurt, this could have been a back and forth game. We could have had a whole different story. For fantasy, a whole different story. I know for some teams, again, this is senseless. Cam Scadaboo was one of the best picks of the draft. See, so you were to ask me going into this week, like, what were the best picks you could have made in fantasy drafts this year? Scadaboo's like top 3. There's probably an argument. Who knows? The way things were going, he really might have been the most valuable player when you do pound for pound what it cost to get him in drafts. It was one of the smartest picks you could have made. And now it's week 8 and you don't got him for the rest of the year. But as it is in football, so it is in fantasy football. The Giants have to face the same thing, and they get the Phillies going to have their bye again to think about everything they have, not what they don't have.
Yeah. Oof. Focus on the positive. Buffalo and Carolina. That's what Panthers fans are saying right now. Focus on Bryce Young's high ankle sprain. Might have him back next week because Andy Dalton was not it. 40-9. The Bills win. They're 5-2. Panthers are 4-4. Josh Allen, 163 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown. Khalil Shakir goes 6 for 88 and the receiving touchdown. Keon Coleman, 3 for 30. Dalton Kincaid, 1 for 23. Dawson Knox, 1 for 15. James Blankety Blanken Cook, 19, 2, 16. 2 rushing touchdowns. The big one is 64 yards, by the way. Josh Allen also has 2 rushing touchdowns as well. I believe joining Cam Newton is the only quarterbacks with over 70 rushing touchdowns. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's talk about Buffalo. And they were rolling. And you know how today was weird?
Yeah.
Cop Talk's weird because we have so many of these games like, hey, Mitchell Trubisky came in. Hey, Jarrett Stidham came in.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, the backup came in because, well, the game was at hand.
Yeah, and again, the story, the real headline here is, Andy Dalton. Sorry, man. But Josh Allen, hey, if you had him in, you got away with one because one of the rushing touchdowns was because A.J. Epinesa, who wasn't the only player to like knock a ball out of the air, a defensive lineman, catch the ball, and then it was Anthony Nelson for Tampa, spoiler alert, taking his in for a touchdown. Epinesa only got to the 1. So you take that away because I think Allen threw the ball 19 times. So nothing. And you don't want to hold this one too much against Dalton Kincaid, who at least played, Keon Coleman. I mean, this game never felt like it was going to be contested, especially because of, let's get this, Khalil Shakir, again, 54-yard touchdown, but it was a short pass, and he put the moves on the Panthers defenders, showed that burst. So he's still just operating in the short passing game. So really, Allen's touchdown pass was created by Shakir. A lot of those passing yards on that play. And then it was just all James Cook. Man, it's That's what happens when you pay him, right? That's what happens when you say you're a foundational part of our team. We're going to pay you like a foundational part of our team. He is a foundational part of the team. And early on in this game, he was the lead punch, okay, and not a jab. He was the lead punch for this offense and just chewing up yards on the Panthers. The same way we saw Rico Dowdle doing it a few weeks ago in the Panthers wins. And this is a James Cook offense. You know, he had a touchdown from 64. And as goes James Cook, not Josh Allen, as goes James Cook. I think that's how goes this offense. And Cecil, I think especially next week when they play Kansas City. Ding, ding.
That's one everybody's looking forward to. They'd be looking forward to the Commanders-Chiefs game Monday if Jaden was playing.
Yeah.
Just takes away the excitement, that's for sure. Carolina side, I guess. Who mixed it up with Deion Dawkins?
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Was that Burns? I think Burns did that. Or no, it wasn't Burns. Who was it? It was one of the Panthers players.
Yeah.
Mixed it up with Deion Dawkins. Whatever. You scored 9 points. How about you do that?
Yeah.
Mix it up with Andy Dalton. Chuba Hubbard, 1 rushing touchdown. Rico Dowdle, 54 yards. Chuba had 34. 6.8 a carry for Rico. 2.8 a carry for Chuba. Do that with what you will. They were down, 19-3 at halftime. So you're not going to run the ball, but it's Andy Dalton. So you're not really going to pass the ball. 175 yards, no touchdowns, 1 INT. Tedero McMillan, 7 for 99. Jalen Coker, 3 for 36. Xavier Legette, 2 for 17. Maybe we're looking at Jatavian Sanders, 3 for 19 in this one. So, yeah, they need Bryce Young healthy. But again, it's a high ankle sprain, and you can't really say he's going to be back this week.
Yeah.
Wait and see.
Yeah, and if you bring him back too early, then you're really risking losing him. But Andy Dalton looked like a quarterback. The clock's about to strike midnight, Andy. But, hey, Andy Dalton got a lot of great memories. This is not going to be one of them. You saw Rico Dowdle come in running well. Andy Dalton takes a sack, got to settle for a field goal. End of the first half, get the ball down in the red zone. Andy Dalton takes a sack, the clock runs out. Andy Dalton turnovers. Just sometimes you watch an offense, this team can't win today. This team just can't win. They can't win with that quarterback. Well, Tedero McMillan fantasy team said, okay, at least Andy Dalton fulfilled that part of his profile. He's going to throw the ball to that number 1 receiver, and Tedero McMillan in his rookie year is a number 1 receiver. Xavier Legette, he turns back into a fantasy nobody. He gets a holding call to hurt that drive that turned into a field goal. And hopefully you had the Buffalo defense in, I guess, and next week again, Bryce Young, please, because Andy Dalton would have to start in Green Bay.
All right. Next up in this recap, we've got 5 games down. We've got 5 games to go. We certainly appreciate everyone for coming out. And oh boy, do we have a scorcher in this one, because Chicago and Baltimore 30-16. It is the Ravens getting that much needed win. And when Baltimore guys that I talk to, Bloom, say we can make a run, this type of win without Lamar, who might be back Thursday, we'll see. But this type of win, the Ravens are one of those teams, like they're way back there, like way, way, way back there. But you're like, God, I don't want them to get hot. The Steelers are playing right now, but I see the Steelers as a pushover in the playoffs. Sorry, don't at me, bro. I see the Ravens as a team, if they got hot, you would not want to face King Henry. We got to talk about the Bears first. The 30-16 final score. Ravens now 2-5. Bears are 4-3. And Caleb, 285. No touchdowns, 1 INT. Roma Dunze, 7 for 114. DJ Moore, 4 for 73. Colson Loveland, 3 for 38. There was no Cole Kmet. And I think the reports were like, yeah, they really appreciate Colson Loveland. And, well, he's not Tyler Warren. And that's probably something that's always going to be held against him. And I like Colson Loveland. DeAndre Swift, 11 for 45 and a rushing touchdown. Kyle Monaghay, 7 for 24. What? Couple catches for Swift here as well. But the Bears just simply couldn't keep up with the Ravens.
Just like we had at Cease, the quarterback duel. Caleb Williams just not the quarterback of that Baltimore. Wait, who was playing quarterback for Baltimore? Caleb Williams, I hate to say it, okay, for fantasy, Caleb Williams wasn't great, at least because they trailed, we didn't think that was in the cards, because this running game had really got going. The Ravens, remember, their run defense was humiliated by Detroit, and they didn't seem to be the same after that. The Bears came out of there by running the ball really well with this 2-back attack. So Caleb isn't going to have to do too much. He did have to throw the ball 38 times. That's not the game plan. So Rome Odunze was good. DJ Moore, good enough. Still we're back with DJ Moore being better than his fantasy stats. Pretty much been the story most of his career. Again, the season he played with Justin Fields, that was the good season. One of his seasons with Justin Fields was the only one. Anyway, my mind is wandering because Caleb Williams is leaving the door open to questions. Mm-hmm. The Ravens got pressure on him. They sped up his process and intentional grounding, just not looking like a confident quarterback. It doesn't seem like he's attaining a little more mastery and a little more confidence and a little more synchronicity with this offense every week. And that's a problem. You'd have one good drive that Swift had a touchdown, but you had a really bad interception at a point in the game when you couldn't throw that interception. At a point in the game where it kills the team's chances to win, just demoralizing. And again, lose a bird leaves a concussion, by the way. They even got down, was 30-16. Derrick Henry scored on the other side of the 2-minute warning. And they got down where they could have scored a touchdown and, onside kick. You never know. Stuff happens. The Ravens lose games like that sometimes. They couldn't get it in. They couldn't even get it in. So that's the frustration for this offense. If the run game's not working, where does that leave you? The good news, the bad news is they play Cincinnati next week. Look what Justin Fields just did. Caleb, this is your confidence game. If it's not, now the questions get even larger.
Yeah. Why did Cooper Rush ever play?
Because they paid him like $7 million in the offseason.
Yeah, sorry, don't be dumb. Because we know Tyler Huntley's game. Everybody knows Tyler Huntley's game, and he's the Dollar Tree version of Lamar Jackson. But you still can do so many things like you do with Lamar Jackson because Cooper Rush is not Lamar Jackson. Neither is Huntley. But as I watched this game, Sigmund, I was like, okay, King Henry back, 21 for 71. So yeah, okay, 3.4 carry, but 2 rushing touchdowns. Zay Flowers, 7 for 63. You see the target structure for Huntley. It was like 22 passes, but it was very efficient. Get the ball out of your hands, run if you need to. 8 for 53, by the way, for Huntley. So I love the way the game plan was made up for him. Mark Andrews, 3 for 34. Charlie Kolar got a receiving touchdown, by the way. Isaiah Likely, a couple catches, only 8 yards. But as I watched this, and by the way, Keaton Mitchell, 4 for 43, put a pin in that. But as I watched this game, I was just like, should have been Huntley the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, I think also Cooper Rush was 4-4 with the Cowboys last year. I think he had a better record than Dak Prescott. Wins are not a quarterback stat. But Huntley, Huntley played like a game that a guy that understands like, hey, the way you play in this game might determine if you get to play in another game ever. He was 14 for his first 15. Snoop. Yeah. Just for fantasy, he was solid. I mean, if you plugged him in as an emergency quarterback for your streaming quarterback 1 or your super flex or quarterback 2, you were happy with this. But for the Ravens fans, you were thrilled, overjoyed, elated because they were 1-5, and 2-5 is manageable going forward when you look at their schedule. 1-6. Oh, 1-6. Now you don't have much margin of error. So this win, you can't overstate how important this win was. And Derrick Henry. Hey, here's a fun story. Derrick Henry had a great fantasy game because his teammates were good. His defense was good.
Right.
His quarterback was good. We saw him underachieving for fantasy, and then we saw Lamar Jackson's out. But now you're looking forward to, because it's not just this win. They have to turn around and play on Thursday against Miami. So if Lamar Jackson's like 97%, but you got to get him, you want to get him back 100%. Now you don't feel so reluctant to let him sit that game. So Henry gets a couple touchdowns. Kolar gets a touchdown right after the interception. And, Huntley lowers his head and gets a couple extra yards on a key run to help keep the clock running. Flowers wasn't bad. You're not scared to put him in now if Lamar Jackson is out. Tight ends, we'll see. But the season is saved. Again, on to Miami.
On to Miami, on to the 49ers and the Houston Texans. Is this the most boring of the games to talk about? I mean, 26-15, the final score. Texans get the win. They're 3-4. San Francisco is 5-3. Mac Jones, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, 193 yards. One of the touchdowns is George Kittle, 4 for 43 and a touch. And Jake Tongs, 1 for 2 and a touch. National Tight End Day. Juwan Jennings, 4 for 45. Kendrick Bourne, 3 for 44. Christian McCaffrey, 3 for 43 as a receiver. And he needed it because he was 8 for 25 as a runner. So, yeah, 16-7 at half, and the 49ers just couldn't get much going. That's why they dropped this one on the road.
Yeah, this game, again, variance. Just like we said about Bijan Robinson, I hope we were facing Christian McCaffrey today. That's not fair, right? Someone got to play Christian McCaffrey when he scored like under 10 points. Well, that's fantasy football. NFL's the same way, you know. Let's give a nod of respect to this Texans defense. And even Mac Jones, who threw a couple of touchdowns. You keep hearing this Brock Purdy thing. Maybe he won't be ready this week. And then we hear the next week. Maybe not this week. Now we're looking at week 9. Maybe not week 9 with that toe. San Francisco still, they're fine with Mac Jones. Threw a couple of touchdowns, kept San Fran kind of in the game. But this is so hard when you only have one possession in the first quarter and there's a face mask on Juwan Jennings, who dropped a 50-yarder in this one. That's a problem. Again, well, how do you get there? Well, San Francisco's defense is having trouble getting off the field. More on that, but that puts more of an onus on that running game, which got going against Atlanta, but went back to sleep in this one. It puts more onus on this passing game. You did get a touchdown to George Kittle in the 2-minute drill. There were drives like an 8-yard McCaffrey run, 2nd and 2, they call 2 throws. They're both incomplete, or they're complete for a yard, and they have to punt. And that's just not going to work. Jake Tongas got a touchdown, like you said. So the Houston defense is good. San Francisco's offense is kind of limited right now. San Francisco plays the Giants next week. We'll see, because again, we're going to talk about the San Francisco defense. You would think it's a good thing for fantasy that your team, their defense has to be compensated for. But again, when you're facing Houston, that's not going to happen. And maybe now it's Houston's offense that can start taking advantage of that.
Exactly. And still with guys that are banged up. So look out, because CJ Stroud, 318, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. But Xavier Hutchinson with 5 for 69. Jalen Knoll, 5 for 63. Jaden Higgins, 4 for 34 and a touch there. Dalton Schultz, couple catches, 24 yards. We know without Nico Collins, without Christian Kirk, here comes Hutchinson and those 2 Cyclones rookies. And here comes Woody Marks from the recap show to the waiver wire show on Tuesday. 11 for 62 on the ground for Woody, and then 4 for 49 as receiver. Nick Chubb, 17 for 56 in this one. Also a couple catches for 13 yards. So, yeah, away you go, Houston, with a nice win at home.
And is this a good offense? Well, they look good against bad defenses. And I think that's the thing. They look good against Tennessee or against Baltimore at the bottom, at the real nadir of their season. And San Francisco, I mean, even though, and again, really sees what we're looking back at is that Atlanta offense, and who didn't do much against San Francisco last week with Michael Penix, saying, "Oh, was it the bone bruise?" I don't know, but I know that Atlanta's offense is not impressing me right now, and San Francisco's defense is not Houston's offense. Kinda, they look so much better, even though there was no Nico Collins out there, and you saw. Spreading out. Also, D. Winters got hurt, by the way. So watch that, because now you're down 2 linebackers if Winters can't play against the Giants. Stroud spread the ball around, getting everyone involved. So Jaden Higgins gets a touchdown. Jalen Noel gets a few catches downfield. Xavier Hutchinson really seems to be the most in tune with CJ Stroud of this set of backups without Kirk out there also, although Kirk, remember, new to the team this year. And Dalton Schultz got a little banged up. He was the guy everyone thought was going to do well, but again, he's the struggle target. And they weren't struggling. Things were coming pretty easily. Braxton Berrios left with the chest injury. He was even getting involved in this one. 5 catches, And then, of course, Woody Marks over 100 total yards and just looking so much more spry than Chubb. And see this situation, this Carolina situation, hopefully they go the way for fantasy of the Pittsburgh situation. I say this as someone that has some Kenneth Gainwell. I think Kenneth Gainwell's good, but Rico Dowdle's clearly, he has more to offer than Chuba Hubbard. Woody Marks clearly has more to offer than Nick Chubb. I think eventually you will see these kinds of backfields resolve themselves the way the Steelers have in favor of Jaylen Warren. And hey, Texans, study up, Cease. That's who Denver plays next week.
Yeah, and they're not playing a bad defense. More on that in just a little bit. This is the most boring game. Sorry, Bloom. I didn't notice the Buccaneers and Saints because oh my God. 23-3, the final score. Baker doesn't do a lot, didn't need to. Tez Johnson's their leading receiver with 5 for 43. K. Dotton 4 for 40. Emeka Egbuka 3 for 35. Oh. Sean Tucker leads the way on the ground, 42 yards, a rushing touchdown. Rashad White, 35 yards, sorry. And then a couple catches, 26 yards. So, yeah, they win really easy and didn't need to do much because their defense kept picking off passes.
Right. Just blame Spencer Rattler, blame Tyler Shuck, blame Saints defense. I mean, this is one of those rivalries where there's bad blood between these teams. Saints defense were not easy outs. The Saints did have a goal line stand early. Tampa had 4 plays from the 1 yard line, didn't score. Then Tampa got to the 1 yard line later. 3 more plays, they didn't score. Finally, Sean Tucker did score. And that was about it for the offensive fireworks on the day, other than some field goals, some long Chase McLaughlin field goals, because the defense was going to outscore the Saints offense anyway. If they just took the points from the Saints defense, the Tampa defense, Tampa wins. So there just was no reason to put the foot to the floor here. Although you did see Sean Tucker maybe nudging that backfield split closer to something even, except Tampa's going into their bye. I hope Bucky Irving is ready. And that's the thing. Maybe if Mike Evans is out there, maybe if Bucky Irving's out there, they don't get stopped on 7 straight plays at the 1 yard line. So the numbers are going to come. Chase Young also had a strip sack in this game. Tampa, another one of those teams sees like Philadelphia. This team should feel really good going into their bye. They're going to get healthier. They're a team to root for in terms of the way they win. Today they show they can win ugly. They can win with their defense. They have some different modes. There's no mode for Saints except losing, so they get a high draft pick.
Yeah, it's got to be quarterback. Sorry to Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, whatever. Both of them throwing picks. 136 yards for Rattler, 128 yards for Shuck. Shuck had 12 yards on the ground. I'm trying to be nice. Rattler had 12 yards on the ground. Alvin Kamara, 21 yards on the ground. Hey, there's Taysom Hill, everybody. Rashid Shaheed at least had 9 for 75. Chris Olave, 8 for 63. Maybe these two are playing their final games for the Saints before the trade deadline. Juwan Johnson, 5 for 53. Kamara, 2 for 24. My man, Devin Neal, 3 catches, 11 yards. Hey, Devon Bailey did something. Yeah, it's bad. New Orleans, I'm sorry.
And this is one of those situations, Cease, where again, Spencer Rattler playing like a backup quarterback, a caretaker, a game manager, making safe decisions, keeping the Saints in games. And then you saw last week, kind of shook loose some turnovers, made some plays throwing downfield, also committed some turnovers. And this week, he started 7 for 7, fumbled the ball away on the first drive. And then you had the pick 6 where Anthony Nelson, someone compared it to Ted Hendricks, the mad stork. Whoa. What was he, like 6'9"? Anthony Nelson, who is only out there because Hassan Reddick is out for this game. Anthony Nelson just puts his big paw up there like a grizzly and snags it out of the air and takes it in easily for a touchdown. And I think at that point, the Saints were like, okay, well, what does it hurt to see Tyler Shuck out there? And in Shuck's defense, the interception he threw was juggled by Chris Olave. But you also could see, again, put this in perspective, Tyler Shuck can't threaten the defense downfield like Spencer Rattler can. They lose that dimension. So neither one of these quarterbacks made a case to deserve this job. And for fantasy, you did see a lot of targets. So the short targets from Tyler Shuck, that helps Olave. That helps Shaheed. But like you said, Cease, of the two, it sounded like he was more likely to get traded. And as we get to the trade deadline, he leaves with a hip injury. Alvin Kamara, will he get traded? Probably not, maybe. I don't know. He doesn't want to get traded. He get a little banged up in this game, but also just the production isn't there because this is an offense that is going backwards. And then the whole team has to go to face a real well-rested, I'm turning it into Elmer Fudd, because you're going to face the LA Rams, New Orleans. Painful memories. I could say 28-3. I'll say painful memories when you talk about that matchup for Saints fans.
All right. It is a Broncos show. And wow. This is what happens when the Broncos fire mostly on all cylinders. Facing the Dallas Cowboys at home, it is 44 Broncos, 24 Cowboys. Cowboys 3-4-1, stupid ties. Broncos are 6-2. You paying attention? Dak Prescott, 188, no touchdowns, 2 INTs, only sacked 2 times, but hit 9 times. Joe Milton comes in garbage time, throws one up to Jalen Tolbert, and I guess your heel counts now because it looked like he stepped out, but whatever. He got the touchdown, garbage time. Riley Moss surprisingly wasn't flagged for pass interference on that play. Interesting move, and Pat Surtain got hurt. We'll talk about it. But George Pickens was covered mainly by Pat Surtain, 7 for 78. Surtain got banged up in and out of the game. CeeDee Lamb, 7 for 74 on Riley Moss. Tolbert with that touchdown, like I said. It's National Tight End Day. Jake Ferguson, the leading tight end of the league, having a historic start to the season, has 0 catches, 0 yards. Was targeted once. Schoonmaker got a couple grabs, but whatever. Like, that is the most surprising stat of all. The 2 rushing touchdowns for Javonte, yeah, whatever. Revenge, okay. 3.2 and a carry for the league's second leading rusher. So Vance Joseph, we'll get to Sean Payton, but Vance Joseph, a hell of a game plan because the Cowboys are lighting up everybody except the Broncos today, Bloom.
Yeah. And this is one of those strange games too, where you see, because the same kind of thing happened to Chicago. Now they lost CeeDee Lamb in that game, so it made more sense that they would have the win go out of their sails. But certainly this is a different offense in Arlington. And this offense, like you said, sees harassing Dak Prescott. Now for fantasy, if you had Prescott in, if you had in Lamb or Pickens, a little bit of a bad break just because, well, for Lamb, because he got interfered with twice in the end zone to set up one of the Javonte Williams touchdowns. Schoonmaker also was tackled at the one. So if you had Prescott in, it's been very easy to at least get 2 touchdowns, even in a blowout loss, and would have been a complete loss. But it was. Jaden Blue had a fumble in this one. I loved DeAndre Tillman's return on a bad red zone interception. And that's just not something we say very often. Dak Prescott threw a bad red zone interception. But that's the kind of, and all credit goes to Denver, again, with Jake Ferguson now. I mean, probably going to go back to the well against Arizona next week. But you have to wonder, he wasn't a cornerstone of the game plan here. And see, I know what happened with that Jalen Tolbert touchdown. It was just such a nice throw. They called the replay booth and they said, the throw was so good, it doesn't matter. The over-unders and the spread and everything and any kind of like anytime touchdowns and all that stuff. Who cares? Let's just reward a nice throw because there wasn't much else nice about this day for Dallas.
Joe Milton can sling it. He doesn't know where to put it all the time, but he can absolutely sling it. By the way, if they did do that, Bloom, this is a larger conversation. We can get into if you'd like. With the NBA kind of being rigged, allegedly, I think the last thing the NFL should do, I said it on the post-game show, I was like, did we see less gambling stuff today? No, I'm not a gambler. I don't hate you if you are. I just own a small business and don't have a lot of money to lose. So, like, whatever. My opinion is just my opinion. You can gamble your life away. Awesome. Great for you. Hope you win all the time. But in the current culture and what just happened with allegedly an NBA coach allegedly throwing games, like, you don't want anything that brings up, it's, anytime touchdowns or whatever. Like, I think the NFL kind of avoided that today. It doesn't always avoid that. The NFL is rigged. Hashtag, look it up. But with the NBA having their problems and the worst commissioner in all of sports, by the way, I just don't think the NFL should be doing anything like that.
Yeah, and
I don't think they did, but man, this is pretty interesting times, huh, Bloom?
Yeah, well, we did the dirty work for them. We did the dirty work for the NFL already because with fantasy football, we have given.
I'm not gambling.
Well, yeah, exactly. Fantasy football isn't gambling. I mean, it's not gambling in the classic sense that leads to compulsive gambling, because you start in July or August and you don't even find out what happened until December. And well, some of us probably are like, no, I know where my team's going. I actually have
I
found
know
out
right
it's
now.
October. Yeah, I know right now. But so it's not that reward. It's not like your brain chasing the reward, but there is your brain chasing the reward on Sundays when you're watching games, because it's still like, is it good for my fantasy team? Is it bad for my fantasy team? You know, so you still have that hook where the watching the game, it's about me, right? Like I'm a character in the game now too. And so we've done that dirty work for them that gambling can do, you know, make, other than fandom. I mean, fandom obviously does that too. So, you know, maybe it could be a good thing for the NFL to back off a little bit. And see, so I think more than any other game, the NFL is a game where a lot of the value, the soul thirst quenching value is like we're doing right now. See, it's like me and you, dear friends, chopping it up, you know, going back and forth about all this stuff that we saw. And fantasy football gives us an arena to do that. It's bonding with your people through shared experiences, through ways that we express ourselves and reveal ourselves through our reactions and just our takes and what we perceive. So I hope that, you know, and again, you know, I had an experience where, I mean, maybe because my father was a compulsive gambler and I could get any other stories. And again, anytime anyone wants to reach out and talk about compulsive gambling, whether it's affecting them or someone around them, it's affecting them, please reach out to me. Please, please. And so I've never really, because I know better, to not open up that angle. Who knows? Maybe I've left out hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. Sees if I just, I mean, I study football all the time. I should be able to make winning bets more often than I make losing bets. But I know that won't lead, because of my father, may he rest in peace, that won't lead to a good place. And I thank him for all the time he spent. It took me to Gamblers Anonymous meetings with him when I was a teenager, so that I would have that self-restraint. But I was watching a game with some people that I don't have opportunities to watch a game with very often. And they all have that gambling layer installed, and they were bonding together. They did that thing where like, let's all make a stupid bet together. And, you know, and if it hits, we're excited,
Right,
you know, but it still was like a layer in between them and the game, in between them and each other, in between them and me, because I wasn't participating in it. And I think that's the saddest part. You know, I mean, it's great to win money. It's great to test your beliefs and knowledge about football. We do that with fantasy football. Now let's just hang out and watch the game. See, let's just hang out and talk about this last game.
Yeah, let's talk about Bo Nix first before we get to our final game, Titans and Indy, and then we're going to talk about Jonathan Taylor. But Bo Nix, pretty much complete game, did throw a pick on the first drive, and then shook it off, 4 touchdowns, and now 2 games with 4 touchdowns. Didn't take him to the fourth quarter this time. So we look at RJ Harvey, and 2 weeks ago, I asked Sean Payton if he was happy with RJ Harvey. He said yes. And then in week 7, RJ Harvey disappointed, and Sean was dancing around like, hey, guys, time's going to go up, guys, time's going to go down. I asked him this week about that. He would not get into specifics. He brings up Tyler Bidet unprompted, and I was like, oh, God, are we going to see that? Talked about him on this show. We did not see that. Morgan Freeman voice. And in fact, it was not Tyler Bidet. It was RJ Harvey going nuts with a hat trick. 3 of them things for the rookie on very limited touches. Another 100-yard day for J.K. Dobbins. Now 2 100-yard rushing games in these 8 games. The Broncos are 6-2. Sutton eating, Franklin eating twice. Pat Bryant on a beautiful touchdown throw from Bo Nix. Evan Ingram doing a little bit more. He's just never going to be the downfield threat anymore, but we see Ingram contributing now. The Broncos, for the first time in 8 games, Bloom, pretty much played a complete game.
Yeah, this is what we're looking for, right? This looked kind of like a Sproles Ingram backfield, right? So aside of Patrick Surtain getting banged up, which, you know, we'll see against that Houston offense, it's warming up. Dallas' defense looks bad.
Oh, yeah.
Bad. So, you know, but I mean, that's not taking anything away from Denver. Denver beat up on the tomato can Cincinnati defense earlier. I mean, if you're a good offense, and that's how you get that's how you get confidence. That's how you get those reps. Like, oh, light bulb, that's how this play's supposed to work, So then against a tougher defense with thinner margins, you can make it work. So yeah, RJ Harvey looking really dynamic in the open field in this game. Troy Franklin looking so confident. Looks confident, one of those guys that was the shower narrative, right? The connection between he and Troy Franklin. I think you could see that. I think you could see that trust. Pat Bryant had a gorgeous, gorgeous first NFL touchdown. Oh my. It was beautiful over the shoulder ball tracking in the corner of the end zone. Cortland Sutton should have had a touchdown. Adam Troutman, National Tight End Day, National Tight End Pass Interference Day. So like that's your letdown, right? Play everybody against Dallas. That's it. Next week, Arizona. Oh well, maybe not. I mean, let me know who your other quarterback is. We'll see about Kyler Murray. I don't know which quarterback. Bam night. Okay, maybe Marvin Harrison. I don't know. Well, at least if it's a good offense. Yeah, Denver looked like a good offense. Well, unless you had Marvin Mims in, but that's what happens. Even good offenses can't feed everybody. Again, well, we're going to learn a much more meaningful data point when Denver goes to Houston next week.
Yeah, big one there. To finish things off, Colts 38, Titans 14. Yeah. 1-7 is Tennessee, 7-1 are the Colts. Yeah. Cam Ward, 259, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. DK getting 7 for 93. The touchdown goes to Gunnar Helm. Chigo Konku gets 4 for 53. Like a Yomanor gets 4 for 52 in this one. Tyjae Spears, 9 for 59 and a rushing touchdown. Tony Pollard, 11 carries, 44 yards. Spears with 3 for 23 as a receiver. Pollard with 1 for 9 as a receiver. We'll quickly move through the Titans, Bloom, because we got to talk about Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Cam Ward and the rookies, Comrade DK, there's something there for sure. You're seeing this. I think even when Calvin Ridley's healthy, you got to keep him at the center of this passing game. Every week you see some things to build on for Cam Ward, and then you see some things to build on for Tyjae Spears. He was the one getting the garbage time touchdown. Also, just looking a little more dynamic than Pollard at this point. So it might be a fantasy matchup. You care about my team that I played Pollard over Spears. Should have been Spears over Pollard. Watch it flip back next week against the Chargers. When I watch Cam Ward, I just think, who's his head coach, offensive coordinator going to be? I hope that Chad Brinker picks a good one for him. I think that Shane Steichen picked a good one for this Colts franchise.
Yeah, let's talk Jonathan Taylor. How often do we see an 80-yard run? It's a thing of beauty, man. 12 for 153, 2 rushing touchdowns for Jonathan Taylor, 2 for 21, and a receiving touchdown for Jonathan Taylor. Oh, boy. Josh Downs, 3 for 39 and a touchdown. Michael Pittman, 8 for 95 and a touchdown. Alec Pierce, 2 for 69. Nice. Tyler Warren, 4 for 53. And then Daniel Jones gets 3 touchdowns, 272 yards. And yeah, Riley Leonard came in. So again, this is kind of like rich man, poor man, right? Your backup quarterback comes in. It's disaster, or you're blowing out the Titans.
Yeah, number 1 seed in the AFC going into week 9, just like everybody had it. Daniel Jones, it just looks easy. It looks easy for him right now. I know it's Tennessee, but it's comfort, it's chemistry, it's confidence, all those things, all converging in fantasy value for Daniel Jones, even while the touchdowns are coming easy for Jonathan Taylor, who is just I'm just glad that we got to see this Jonathan Taylor again, because we saw him earlier in his career, and the ankle problems and all the stuff with Anthony Richardson and the franchise, and just like this a beautiful runner, in the sense also that it's very close, very similar to that. Just admire it. Derrick Henry, kind of like watching a comet. 3 is the magic number here. It wasn't quite 3 rushing scores. It would have been 3 touchdowns, 3 games in a row, 3 touchdowns on the ground against the Titans. It would have been the first time ever. One of them was a pop pass. And yeah, Michael Pittman had some amazing catches in this game. And Josh Downs caught a touchdown, and Alec Pierce caught a couple of bombs downfield, and Tyler Warren caught some. None of those guys were fantasy hits because Tennessee's just not good enough. What's going to happen when Indianapolis plays an offense that can keep up with them next week? It's Pittsburgh. Nope, not next week.
Nope. Nope. Aye. All right. So that is a wrap for today's program. Bloom, how are you?
Great. I think, again, it is the friends we make along the way. It is. This was a crazy week, high variance, injuries messing things up. Again, these bipolar teams, these teams that, what mood are they in? How much are they willing to summon up a game plan against this team, and we continue to learn. And then we learn, and we also learn where we need to learn. We sometimes we're like, okay, I got to go back to the drawing board on that. And it's always a shifting, moving target, if you will. But it's almost like also the place that you're sitting at, aiming at the target, is also moving. So we're always adjusting. But it is that process that's stimulating. And especially with fantasy football, it's doing that process with other live minds, live consciousnesses that we have some affinity with and that we enjoy mixing it up with. And I'm always reminded, Cecil, of the parable of the Chinese farmer and the idea of, was that good or that bad? Well, let's wait and see. So it's like that for NFL teams. Hey, when we went through that period without this player, we discovered this other player. It's a long season. Well, maybe not in fantasy football. 5 weeks left. We're going to spend those 5 weeks with you. And then the weeks after that. And then we'll take a little short break. Well, playoffs will be with you. The point is, we want to spend this time with you because we love you, and it's so great to be part of each other's lives.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you. It's great to celebrate 20 years of the Audible right here with footballguys.com. We usually say sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
We need to say thank you, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Even more, because a couple chuckleheads like us 20 years ago, let's do a pod. They weren't even called podcasts then.
Yeah, well, and Cease, I think it's also because, like, you and I, when we first met, we didn't know anything else about each other except you were geeked to talk about a 6th-round pick or an undrafted free agent, and so was I, right? Did that just make us best friends? Well, it made us podcast co-hosts. And it's because...
I still remember our arguments about Amos Zaraway on Old Yeller.
Yeah, I remember the first time that
Amos Zaraway can't play. Amos Zaraway's the man.
I still remember the first time that we went to, this is go down memory lane with Cease and Sig, when the first time we went to the Shrine game and I broke your heart by telling you Tyrone Moss just didn't have NFL burst. Just the burst. Didn't have that burst. Yeah. But, again, Joe Bryant set up this place with David Dodds. What's up, David Dodds? The true genius, destroying productivity everywhere. Because it's just, we enjoy it. We're stimulated by it. And it was a place basically around that ethos. And so it was the perfect place for us to just start this thing of like, well, I'm a compulsive talker. I like to hear the sound of my voice. You're a compulsive talker. You like to hear. Let's do it together. Maybe we'll find some people that can stand the sound of our voices to pay attention long enough. And hopefully we have something to say as we're and I think that, but that spirit, be excellent to each other spirit that Joe created made it just natural that this was where this show was going to end up in terms of tone, in terms of the level of discourse, not just about football, but about life, and about the idea that every time we spend time together is precious, and we should try to leave each other in a better mood than we found each other.
So we always ask, like, hey, if you love the Audible, you want to support the show, like, comment, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Check out footballguys.com. Just hit up Joe Bryant on Twitter or Facebook and just say thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the Audible for X number of years. And thank you. By the way, Allie wants to know what's the best record shop in NOLA.
Yeah, well, I would go to Euclid Records for the most extensive collection. Louisiana Music Factory is the best. It's down on Frenchman Street. Euclid's over on Chart Street in Bywater. Louisiana Music Factory is on Frenchman Street. So you can easily go when you're just going around like as a tourist. They have the best Louisiana music selection. And then you can go uptown and check out Peaches Records with Mama Peaches. And that's in an old Woolworth where they still have the lunch counter in there. And it's the coolest, like, iconic record store. But that isn't even half of the record stores in New Orleans. There's Domino Sound in my neighborhood. If you want world music, there's a hardcore record store called Sisters. And I just go, see, now you got me going about records in New Orleans.
That's why it's podcast number 1872 that we are going to do. Maybe sooner than you think. Anyway, he is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey saying, it's the Audible, man. 20 years. Thank you. And thanks to Joe. Stay tuned. And would you please, as always, stay frosty, baby.